Hey, Stolen Cousins. You already know what time it is. Animated horror stories. Animated horror stories. Ba-dum, ba-dum. You see where we at today? We at our cousin I am our scary tales house. You know, you know. Doing what? Three true camping horror stories animated. Now, I've been camping. Me personally, I love a good camping trip. That's just me. That's just I. I also know people who have never been camping, and I know people that would never go camping. Why? Because it's just bugs and it's just nature and it's just the outdoors. But not all camping experiences are like that, Like you could be in a cabin but still in the outdoors, it's just more or less of no television, you yourself in nature. Have you ever been camping? Do you like camping? Say that in the comments down below. I love me a good camping. I used to go to a camping place every couple of years. So I'm a camper. But let's get into it. As I always say, feel free to go to the I Am Our Scary Tales page. You can go over there. You could please subscribe to them. You can watch their videos with them by your lonesome if you want to. And then just make sure you come back. As long as you come back, it's squared away. But yes, let's get up into it. Please go grab a blunt, grab a bottle of water, grab a bag of chips, and grab a blanket so you can stay snug. And let's get up in here. Let's see what's going on. Because a lot can happen in the woods. In the woods, in the cabin, a lot. Y'all seen
I was
cabin
18 when
in
this
the woods?
happened. High school was finally coming to an end.
Mm.
Everyone was hugging their friends and promising to be in touch. Even my friends and I were emotional. The fact that two of us were
But I used
leaving
to
next
cry
week
at
hit me
the
like a brick to the face.
I was one of those.
We wanted to make the upcoming weekend memorable, so my friend Kevin suggested going on a road trip to the forest on the outskirts. It was a 45-minute drive from our town. We jammed the car full of food, camping stuff, and of course tons of drinks. It was four of us: me, Kevin, Max, and Patrick. We were still looking for a spot when we got to the campsite. It was packed with campers and tents. Man, this place is flooding with babes in birthday suits. Shut up, Max. Well, what do we do now? I say we drive until we leave this crowd. We agreed with Patrick and didn't get down from the car. I started the engine. Honestly, it was an all-boys trip, and we wanted to have our own space. After driving for 15 minutes straight, we stumbled onto this narrow trail that went deep into the woods. A signboard was put up in the corner reading, "Deep Woods. Camp at your own risk."
And that's where y'all decided to stay.
Guys, I don't know if it's a good idea to camp here. We could get lost. Don't be a chicken. It was our last trip before college,
Now, when y'all died.
so I smiled and took the trail. The uncanny feeling of entering this part of the forest kept ringing in my mind like a red flag. Halfway down the trail, we found the perfect spot we were looking for. Patrick and Max started putting up the tent while Kevin and I hoarded wood for the bonfire. The weather was rainy and humid, so we spent the first few hours inside the tent, just making fun of each other and drinking. We were enjoying the moment when Kevin said, "Is someone walking on our site right now?" I poked my head out of the tent, thinking there'd be some wild animal, but there was nothing. No, there's no one out there. You're drunk, dude. Kevin felt embarrassed and we made fun of him. At around 3 p.m., the sky got clear. We came out of the tent and realized it was going to be dark soon. Hey, let's explore the surroundings before the light fades out. Alright, let's go. Kevin and Max stayed back at the campsite. They wanted to get started on dinner, so Patrick and I went without them. Our crunching footsteps on the wet leaves echoed into the woods. I don't think there's any other campers here except us. With the mixture of the tall trees, the hooting owl, and the breezing wind, the atmosphere was honestly quite thrilling. Being drunk, we didn't realize how far we had come from the campground. Suddenly, we heard music in the distance. It sounded like someone was listening to the radio. Am I going crazy, or do you also hear music? You're not crazy. I hear it too. It seems like it's coming from the end of that small trail. So far, I overlooked a second trail heading to our left. We followed that trail. Yes, that was our mistake number 2. After 5 minutes, we reached this small campground that looked like a mess. An old rusty RV was parked under the tree. Tattered trousers, shirts, and socks were strung up in a row. A bunch of coolers and damaged car batteries were scattered around the van. Whoever owned these things was undoubtedly living off this van for quite some time. Patrick pointed at a pile of blankets lying on the ground. Dude, I think there's something under this. Don't touch it, dude. We don't even know. But Patrick reached out to grab the blanket when suddenly it jumped. Oh, you damn dog! What we guessed was a blanket was a giant boarhound dog with wrinkled skin like my grandpa. Have a feeling we shouldn't be here, dude.
At all, so leave.
Yeah, let's go back.
Period.
Patrick and I turned around when we heard a coarse voice behind us. Need anything, boys?
No, we're good,
A man
thank
was
you.
staring at us from the window of the RV. He waved at us, and I had to smile to drive away the awkwardness. No, sir. We were only fooling around. Sorry to disturb you. We were about to head back. What? No, it's all right. I hardly get visitors. He came out of the RV to talk to us. He was tall and partially bald. The amount of brown hair poking from his head reminded me of the uneven lawn of my house. Why don't you boys come into my van for a drink? Patrick and I exchanged a worried look. Even though the man appeared friendly, he gave off weird vibes. But just to be polite, we did go in. The inside of the van was way worse than its outside. Not just that, the van was covered in uncomfortable cutouts from adult magazines. Being boys, we could still ignore them. But what made me shiver was the big shiny chopper kept on his bed. It was the only thing that seemed clean and well taken care of. That's just for protection. There are bad people in this world, you know? Yeah. So how long have you been living here? Long before you hit puberty. His joke wasn't funny at all.
At all.
He handed us his drinks and told us where to check out in this national park. After a few more minutes, we got up to leave when the man suddenly grabbed my hand and asked in an almost whispering voice, Hey, how many of you are there?
No.
There's 4 of us, but
No,
why?
thank you.
Quite a risk. It's just not really worth it, I think. I just don't. You wouldn't be able to hide all the bodies, wouldn't be able to hide all the evidence. There'd just be too much. One of them could run. I can't be chasing them right now. I can't be doing this shit. He
What?
went on muttering to himself, and we could hardly make out what he was saying. We
He was
finally
saying some
came back
shit?
to the campsite. That night, I almost slept with one eye open. The smiling face of that man kept flashing in front of my eyes. Even though he looked normal, something didn't seem right about him. We came back from the trip and our lives moved on. After 2 months, I was at my girlfriend's house when Patrick called me. Dude, check the news now! Why? What happened?
What's that calling
It's that guy from the campsite. He's been arrested for murder. What? The story you just saw is based on the true incident uploaded by a Redditor with the username Dr. Jim Danger. The Redditor was 18 when he and some friends took a road trip to the Apalachicola National Forest near Tallahassee, Florida.
Okay.
Their goal was to get away from people, so they found themselves driving far into the woods.
Good little
After they set
campsite.
up camp and had a few drinks, he and a friend decided to explore the surrounding forest. They found another trail and started following it, but the further they went, the more apparent it became that someone was living there. Eventually, they came to the campsite of an older man living out of his van. His clothes were strung up, coolers were scattered around, and a dog was sprawled beside the truck. The user and his friend tried to back out without being seen, but the man caught sight of them and called them over. He asked them friendly questions and offered places they should check out in the park. After about 10 minutes of talking, they returned to their own campsite. The man was a little strange but seemed perfectly harmless. But fast forward 2 months, and the Reddit user's friend calls and tells him to turn on the television. There, on screen, was the man they met in the woods that night, on trial for 4 murders. The man was none other than Gary Hilton, a former Army veteran infamously known as the National Forest serial killer. He admitted to killing and decapitating at least 4 hikers over the years. Hilton would camp in forests and prey on defenseless walkers until January 2008, when he was arrested following the disappearance of Meredith Emerson. Meredith Emerson, a 24-year-old sales manager and University of Georgia graduate, was murdered in January 2008 by Gary Hilton while hiking on Blood Mountain in Georgia. Her cause of death was eventually determined to be blunt force trauma to the head.
Bastard.
I love backpacking. It's my favorite hobby to calm down my nerves after a hectic week at work. Almost every weekend, I go on hiking or road trips, alone. I'm a bit of an introvert, which kind of backfired on me this one time. After a stressful project, I took a 5-day-long holiday to travel and live in nature. I always keep a bag ready to go camping. I took enough ready to eat food and water to get by. The plan was simple. I drive by the high road surrounded by woods and camp inside it for a night's rest. It was my first time doing things like that, so I never saw it coming. The first 3 days went smoothly. I woke up to amazing sunrises, had hot coffee, and prepared breakfast. And then, I headed for the next stop. On the 4th day, I left the last town on the highway and got onto this dirt road leading to the deep forest. I prepped my car before that and refilled everything. This time, I was going to camp by a lake and stay there for 2 days, totally away from people. I was buying drinks from the gas station when the owner asked,
"Going hiking, huh?
Yeah, man.
Are you gonna spend the night in the forest?"
Yeah. Why?
The man's face changed. He chinned down his face and said in a low voice,
Has no one ever told you about Mary-Am?
I frowned at hearing this. The owner went on.
No.
Mary-Am was a beautiful maid in a bid to escape her owner. One night, she ran away and ended up in those woods. She wandered into an unknown place and was raped by thugs, who later murdered her.
Come on, dude. You're just trying to scare me. Well, it won't work for me.
I paid for him and left him in my car. As I drove away, the man kept muttering how I shouldn't be staying in those woods at night. I was halfway put down when the sky rumbled. Dark clouds immediately covered the daylight, and the rain started
I wouldn't
pouring,
stand on board.
but I couldn't
What's up,
stop.
that's all right.
So I kept driving at a minimal speed. I feared that going at high speed might turn the car over if it started to storm, hence where I was supposed to reach by afternoon. I arrived after sundown. It was a shallow creek. The banks were filled with uneven grass and wildflowers, creating a mystic smell.
At last!
The moonlight was shining on the stream. I collected some wood and lit a fire to warm myself. After feeling all charged, I chugged drinks and made dinner. I heard a waterfall at the end of this creek, and I wanted to wake up early to visit it the following day. I made fried eggs, bacon, and some ramen noodles. I was starving after the annoying drive. By 8:30, I was inside my tent reading a book. I could hear the splash of water on the riverbank, the chirping of crickets, and the crackling sound of wood burning in the fire. After 5 seconds, another sound added to that ambience. The sound of someone swimming in that creek.
No.
I could hear the clapping of waves echoing into the woods.
Nope.
I unzipped the tent and peeked out from the corner. The banks were filled with fog.
Just
a
go
cloud
back
of
to
smoke
sleep.
was covering the creek like a gray wool blanket.
Go back to sleep.
Just then, I saw a head
Oh,
floating
hell
on the
no.
water. I flashed my light, and it quickly went underwater. A weird feeling increased
And you a
my
mermaid?
heartbeat.
Hell no.
Was that a person? I came out on
No,
the banks
sir,
and
it's a
flashed my
demon.
light to look around. I couldn't see anything. I turned around and returned to my tent when I heard a sound in the water. I flashed my light back at the water. It flickered twice and then stopped working.
Damn it!
Go back to sleep.
I hit the torch with my fist, but it was done for. That's when the whistling started. High-pitched yet slow whistles coming from the creek. I stood on the foggy riverbank
thank you.
illuminated by the pale moonlight.
Good as hell.
My skin crawled. Suddenly, I began feeling threatened by this unknown entity.
Who's there? Hello? If you're trying to scare me or something!
I should tell you who she is.
I could see a movement in the water. Something was swimming toward the bank, right in my direction. It was coming at full speed, moving the water rapidly. When it reached the bank, I fell, screaming.
Who is that? What do you want?
Suddenly, clouds of fog
demon,
covered
boy.
everything in front of me. All the sounds stopped. An uncomfortable silence remained. And then I saw a girl standing amidst the thick fog. I have never seen a face like that. Her eyes were like little fireflies glowing in those hollow black sockets. Her skinny pale hands hung beside her body. She stared into my soul for a few seconds and then suddenly closed her eyes. My body was numb in fear, but somehow I gathered the courage. I hit the flashlight one more time, and it finally turned on. But this time, she wasn't there. Only the thick fog crowded in front of my eyes.
Where'd you go?
With trembling hands, I kept looking into the mist. I wasn't ready for this shock, so I fell on the muddy banks. The girl was now standing before me, floating 4 feet above the ground. Her mouth opened wide, and so did her eyes. Then I heard a buzzing sound. As the sound grew louder, thousands of flies came out of her eyes, of her mouth. It was as if she was vomiting them alive.
Boy.
The flies swarmed all over me,
Yeah.
and I started running like a mad dog.
Take your ass up out of it.
All I remember after that was grabbing my stuff and hopping into my car. I looked at the Moonlight Creek one last time.
Boy, if you don't mind your business to go.
And she was dancing on the water, laughing like a ghost. Her long hair dangled in the cold wind as she moved in circles, stretching her arms wide to the sky. Her chuckles echoed into the night. A sick joy could be sensed in her lunatic dance moves. It was terrifying to witness. I left the place that night. I drove until I reached the same gas station. I spent the night there. The next morning, I told the owner everything I saw. The owner said Miriam's body was found on the banks of the creek one morning. Her face was distorted with fear. A swarm of flies moved in circles around her hollow jaw that was opened in a silent scream. Her killers were never caught. People say she still haunts the woods at night.
This happened when I was working to keep up with my college bills. I lived in a small apartment close to campus. I was an extrovert and enjoyed meeting new people. But not anymore. It was a warm Saturday night. I was drinking lemonade sitting in a cafe when I got a text from a guy. For the sake of the story, let's call him Andrew. He said he too went to the same college as me and got my number from a friend. After chatting with him for a bit, he said he was near my location and wanted to meet. It sounded rushed, but I was alone and needed some company. I texted him my exact location and waited for his arrival. After 10 minutes, he walked into the cafe. He was a tall, handsome guy who looked exactly like the picture. Having the first green flag, I waved at him, and he smiled. He sat down at my table and we started talking.
Good that you were close by.
Yeah, thank God I decided to take my truck to the car wash.
You're funny.
Within the next 20
Girl, he ain't
minutes,
say
we were
nothing
holding
funny.
hands like high schoolers. There was something about him that was just really attractive to me. We had dinner and went for a long drive in his car. He had this black pickup truck which he said was a gift from his dad. After fooling around in random streets, Andrew pulled over the vehicle under a tree.
Y'all
So,
just
you want to go
met.
hiking?
What? Right now? But I didn't even bring my stuff.
He pointed at this big rucksack in the back seat and said he loves night hiking.
Okay,
So he
but that's
always
your
carries his
stuff.
things.
That's not my stuff.
So far, there were no red flags, so I agreed. Andrew said he forgot his flashlight, but the camping ground was closed.
Red flag.
Also, he knows his way around these woods. Hence, the moonlight will be enough for him to find the way. I trusted
Talk
him.
about ain't no red flags, bitch.
I
just
didn't think
heard
things
you.
were going to go bad. We were walking into the woods. It was dark and scary.
Oh,
I could see
my
fireflies
God.
wandering around us. A hooting owl almost gave me a heart attack.
It's too dark for me. I'm switching on my flashlight.
As I went to turn on the flashlight, Andrew's tight grip jammed my wrist. He looked me in the eye and told me to be quiet. Shh! That's when I felt my heartbeat increase. My voice started to shake.
Andrew? What's happening?
He put his hand on my mouth and pulled me behind a tree. I wanted to scream, but I was so frozen that I could only stare at him with wide, freaked out eyes. Just then, I heard a snap in the distance. Andrew looked to our left, and I realized he was scared too. He was looking at something which seemed to threaten him.
As long as
Was that why you told me to be quiet?
is he not?
But what is it? Andrew looked back at me and whispered into my ear. There's a man behind that bush. I saw his bloody knife shine in the moonlight.
Oh my god.
We need to be very still and slowly back our way to the car. Stay still until I tell you to run, okay? I nodded my head, and soon I heard footsteps
Hey, Andrew,
approaching
we fuck
us.
with you. Okay.
He's coming this way! Run! Run! We started to run. I didn't care about the dried branches cutting my skin on the way. I just ran. I heard Andrew scream
Keep going,
and saw him
bitch.
trip
Keep
and fall
going.
onto the
Sorry,
ground.
Andrew, buddy. Got to go. Does he
I
have
rushed
to
back to him and got him up. Even though he sprained his leg, he didn't stop until we were inside the car. He locked the doors right away. When he saw me,
Shit, smart
he
man.
was standing under a
No!
tree, hiding in the shadows. I bet he was looking at us in anger. I could see his demonic eyes burn with regrets even in that pitch black. Andrew spent the night in my apartment, and we never knew who that man was until years later. We never got to see his face. Andrew said he only saw his silhouette.
Ugh.
Years later, I was sitting in the living room when Andrew, my now husband, turned on the
Okay,
TV.
good shit. Look at
Ted
y'all.
Bundy,
Kitty
the
Booty.
infamous serial killer, was caught at that time. When the journalist asked him about having
lying.
close calls of getting caught, Bundy narrated an incident from a moonlight night in the woods down the highway. He said he was dumping a victim's body there when he encountered a boy and girl coming his way. They seemed like hikers, he said. Bundy thought they saw him and chased them to stop him from escaping. What he said after that made my husband traumatized for life. Bundy mentioned that the guy probably tripped, and it was the victim's body he tripped on. Lucky for him, the guy never bothered to check. And Bundy realized that the couple never saw his face. It gives me chills to think about how we escaped a deranged serial killer. We also live with deep regret. If we had just seen his face, we would have been able to report him to the cops. So many innocent lives could have been saved then. The story you just saw is based on an actual incident
No
with a couple who later
freaking
shared it on
way!
YouTube. Sometime during the 1970s, a young couple went on a first date.
I was about to say
They were
Ted
having
Bundy
a
was
good time,
killing
even though it was
couples,
awkward
too?
like most first dates are. It was getting late and the man asked the woman if she wanted to go on a late night hike. He was very experienced with the area and had hiked there many times. She agreed and they went off towards the woods. They arrived at the spot and got out of the car, walking into the woods. As they were walking into the dark woods, the man felt something hit his foot. It was very soft. The feeling in his stomach was extremely intense now that something was wrong. He paused for a second and continued off without finding what was the soft thing he felt on the ground. Years later, that very same couple was happily married. They were both
Happily.
watching TV one day and stumbled upon an interview with the famous serial killer Ted Bundy. The interviewer asked when was the closest time he was almost caught during his killing spree. Ted Bundy said he was almost caught once in the woods when a man stepped on a dead body while hiding in the woods, but he just walked off and didn't investigate. He told the interviewer where and when it happened. It turns out it was the same couple.
That would have made me sick. I would have been sick to my stomach. Like, sick. I would have died. I would have been watching the news, then I would have been laid out dead. Like, in either circumstances, to have been running and have my legs hit the body, I spring my leg on the body, or have even been walking, step on something squishy ishy, like, fuck is that? Keep walking and to later find out you stepped on a body? A body? Yada 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 yada. What? Crazy. So yeah, this video is a plus for me. What I say, camping is good. Y'all just have to be careful because ain't no reason for you to be out here just going out random camping nights and going to places that say don't go this far and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, you guys, I love y'all. Bye.